The blinding sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains made Maya Rodriguez's pounding headache even more excruciating. She squinted against the harsh morning light, her mouth dry as cotton, the silk sheets beneath her distinctly different from the threadbare bedding of her studio apartment. Panic surged through her veins as fragments of the previous night flickered through her mind. The job interview celebration, one drink too many, and a handsome stranger offering to help her. Home. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya bolted upright, clutching the luxurious duvet to her, just suddenly aware she was wearing an oversized t-shirt that definitely wasn't hers. The spacious bedroom, with its minimalist furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago, was nothing like her cramped apartment in the struggling South Side neighborhood she called home. Heart racing, she spotted her clothes, neatly folded on a nearby chair, a small relief in the storm of confusion and embarrassment crashing over her. "Good morning," a deep voice called from the doorway. Maya froze, slowly turning to see a tall man with tousled dark hair and kind eyes holding a steaming mug. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering what smelled like heavenly strong coffee. He was dressed in joggers and a plain white t-shirt, looking unfairly handsome for this early hour. "I'm Ethan, by the way. I don't think we properly introduced ourselves last night." Maya accepted the coffee with trembling hands, desperately, trying to piece together how she'd ended up here. "I'm Maya," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did we—" The question hung in the air, unfinished but clear. Ethan's eyes widened, and he quickly shook his head. "No, absolutely not. You were in no condition for that. You got sick outside the bar, couldn't remember your address, and my place was close. I gave you something to sleep in and took the couch." His straightforward explanation brought both relief and a fresh wave of embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," Maya groaned, hiding her face behind the coffee mug. "This isn't like me at all. I was celebrating. I finally got a job interview at Meridian Technologies after 6 months of unemployment." The admission slipped out before she could stop herself, her typical guardedness weakened by the bizarre situation. "Congratulations," Ethan said, leaning against the doorframe. "That's a great company. When's the interview?" "Monday morning," Maya replied, taking a cautious sip of the perfectly brewed coffee. "My last chance to stay in Chicago, honestly." Again, more than she'd intended to share, but something about Ethan's easy presence made the words flow. At 28, Maya's life wasn't supposed to be this complicated. With a master's degree in software engineering and 5 years of experience, she should have been flourishing in Chicago's tech scene. Instead, the sudden closure of her previous company had left her adrift, each month of unemployment, depleting her savings and confidence simultaneously. The interview at Meridian was her final hope before she'd be forced to retreat to her parents' home in Arizona, a prospect that felt like surrendering every ounce of independence she'd fought for. "Have you had breakfast?" Ethan asked, interrupting her spiraling thoughts. "I make a mean omelette." Maya's instinct was to decline, to grab her things and escape this mortifying situation. But the genuine warmth in his expression gave her pause. Plus, the coffee was exceptional, suggesting his culinary skills might be worth experiencing. "If it's not too much trouble," she conceded, realizing she couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked for her. In Ethan's sunlit kitchen, with its professional-grade appliances and spotless countertops, Maya perched awkwardly on a bar stool, watching him move with effortless confidence. His apartment occupied the top floor of a renovated industrial building in River North, one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods. Everything about his home screamed success, from the tasteful modern art to the sweeping city views, making Maya acutely aware of her own precarious circumstances. "So what do you do?" she asked, attempting normal conversation while trying not to stare at the way his shoulders moved beneath his thin t-shirt as he chopped vegetables. "I'm in tech management," he replied vaguely, skillfully flipping an omelette filled with ingredients Maya couldn't afford to buy regularly. "Been with my current company about 3 years. "Must be doing well," Maya observed, gesturing at the impressive surroundings. Ethan's smile was modest. "I've been fortunate," he acknowledged, sliding a perfectly plated omelette in front of her. "But success isn't just about the address or the view." The food was delicious, and despite her discomfort, Maya found herself relaxing into conversation with this stranger who'd shown her unexpected kindness. Ethan asked thoughtful questions about her previous work, offering insights about the tech industry that suggested considerable expertise. When she mentioned the challenging interview process at Meridian, he offered genuine encouragement, rather than the empty platitudes she'd grown accustomed to from friends and family. "Their development team is working on some groundbreaking AI integration," he commented, refilling her coffee. "If that's your interest area, you'd be joining at an exciting time." Maya narrowed her eyes. "You seem to know a lot about them." Ethan shrugged. "Chicago's tech world is smaller than you'd think." After breakfast, Maya gathered her belongings, determinedly ignoring the pounding in her head. "Thank you for everything," she said, standing awkwardly in his entryway. "For helping me last night, for breakfast, for not being a serial killer," she added with a nervous laugh. Ethan smiled, a dimple appearing in his left cheek. "Low bar, but I'm glad to clear it." He hesitated, then reached for his phone. "Would it be okay if I got your number? Maybe we could meet for coffee sometime when you're not recovering from a celebration." Maya's instinct was to decline. Her life was too complicated, too uncertain to add dating to the mix. Yet something about Ethan's straightforward kindness intrigued her. She recited her number, telling herself it was simply polite after all he'd done. "I should warn you, if Monday's interview doesn't go well, I might be leaving Chicago soon. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "Then we should hope it goes well," he replied, walking her to the door, "for multiple reasons." The weekend passed in a blur of preparation for Monday's interview. Maya researched Meridian Technologies obsessively, practiced coding problems, and rehearsed answers to potential questions. Despite her thorough preparation, she arrived at the gleaming downtown office building with butterflies in her stomach, her best blazer feeling inadequate compared to the sleek surroundings. "Maya Rodriguez, for the 9 a.m. interview," she told the receptionist, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Yes, we've been expecting you," the young woman replied, with practiced efficiency. "Please take the elevator to the 30th floor. Mr. Sullivan's assistant will meet you there." The elevator ride seemed interminable, each floor indicator increasing Maya's anxiety. Her entire future hinged on this interview. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Her credit card was nearly maxed out, and her landlord had already found a new tenant for when her lease expired at the end of the month. She couldn't afford to fail. The 30th floor opened to a reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of Lake Michigan. A poised woman in her 40s approached. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Patricia, Mr. Sullivan's assistant. We're running slightly behind schedule this morning. Would you like some water while you wait?" Maya nodded gratefully, her mouth suddenly dry. As she sat in the pristine waiting area, she scrolled through industry news on her phone, trying to calm her nerves. A text message from an unknown number appeared. "Good luck today, you've got this, Ethan." The unexpected support brought a smile to her face. She'd mentioned the company, but not the specific time of her interview. He must have assumed it was morning. Before she could respond, Patricia returned. "Mr. Sullivan is ready for you now," she announced, leading Maya down a corridor lined with glass-walled conference rooms. They stopped at a corner office with panoramic city views. "Maya Rodriguez is here," Patricia announced, gesturing for Maya to enter. The man behind the desk stood to greet her, and Maya froze in absolute shock. Standing before her, now dressed, in an impeccable charcoal suit instead of casual weekend wear, was Ethan, the same man whose bed she'd woken up in barely 48 hours earlier. His expression reflected her own surprise for just a moment before transforming into professional composure. "Ms. Rodriguez, welcome to Meridian Technologies. I'm Ethan Sullivan, Director of Engineering." Maya stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing through implications. The kind stranger who'd helped her home, made her breakfast, and texted good luck wishes was actually Ethan Sullivan, the executive whose team she was hoping to join. Mortification washed over her in waves as every detail of their previous encounter flashed through her mind. "Please, have a seat," Ethan continued smoothly, gesturing to the chair across from his desk, betraying no hint of their previous encounter. "Your resume is quite impressive." Somehow, Maya managed to lower herself into the chair without collapsing, her face burning with embarrassment. The interview she'd prepared so diligently for had just become infinitely more complicated. How could she possibly focus on technical questions when all she could think about was the fact that she'd been sick in front of, possibly on, her potential boss? "Before we begin," Ethan said, his voice low and professional, "I want to assure you that our previous encounter will have no bearing on this interview, positive or negative. We're starting fresh right now." Maya swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "I appreciate that," she managed, finding her voice at last. Professional, she needed to be professional. This job was too important to lose over a mortifying coincidence. The interview proceeded with surprising normalcy. Ethan asked challenging, but fair questions about her technical experience, her approach to problem-solving, and her previous projects. To Maya's relief, he maintained absolute professionalism, as if they truly were meeting for the first time. She gradually found her footing, her passionate knowledge of software development overriding her personal discomfort. When Ethan presented a complex coding problem, Maya's analytical mind engaged fully, temporarily forgetting the bizarre circumstances. She walked through her solution methodically, explaining her thinking process as she worked. "Impressive approach," Ethan commented when she'd finished. "Most candidates overlook the efficiency gains in that corner case." A technical interview with 2 senior developers followed, then a tour of the office with a potential teammate. Throughout it all, Maya maintained her composure, though her mind occasionally flashed to images of herself in Ethan's oversized t-shirt, accepting coffee from the man who might determine her professional future. 3 hours later, Maya found herself back in the elevator, emotionally and mentally drained. Despite the awkward circumstances, she felt she'd performed well. The technical questions had played to her strengths, and the team seemed genuinely interested in her experience. If only her potential boss hadn't seen her at her absolute worst before she'd had a chance to showcase her best. As she crossed the lobby toward the exit, a text message appeared. "My office, 2 p.m. tomorrow, if you're available. We should talk. Ethan." Maya stared at her phone, uncertain whether this was standard procedure or something more personal. Either way, she had little choice but to agree. The next 24 hours passed in excruciating slowness. Maya alternated between replaying every moment of the interview, analyzing what this follow-up meeting might mean, and contemplating whether she should address the elephant in the room or pretend their weekend encounter had never happened. By the time she returned to Meridian's offices the following afternoon, She had rehearsed a dozen different conversations, but felt prepared for none of them. Patricia led her directly to Ethan's office, where he stood looking out over the Chicago skyline. He turned as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming back," he began, gesturing for her to sit. "I wanted to speak with you personally rather than having HR make this call." Maya's heart sank. This was a rejection, delivered in person out of pity or perhaps guilt. She steeled herself for disappointment, already calculating how quickly she could pack her apartment and book a flight to Arizona. "The team was extremely impressed with your technical skills and experience," Ethan continued, taking his own seat. "Your approach to the coding challenge demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking we value at Meridian." Maya nodded, waiting for the inevitable but that would shatter her hopes. "I'd like to formally offer you the position of senior software engineer on our AI integration team," he stated, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your starting salary and benefits package are outlined here. We'd like you to start next Monday, if possible." Maya stared at him in disbelief, then at the folder containing the job offer she'd been desperately hoping for. Thank you," she managed, opening the folder to find a compensation package far exceeding her expectations. Relief washed over her, followed immediately by confusion. "But what about our previous meeting?" Ethan supplied, his professional demeanor softening slightly. "As I said yesterday, that had no bearing on our decision. You earned this position through your qualifications and interview performance, nothing else." Maya studied his face, searching for any hint of ulterior motive or discomfort. Finding none, she nodded slowly. "I appreciate your professionalism and the opportunity. However," Ethan continued, leaning forward slightly, "now that the interview process is concluded, there is something we need to discuss." Here it was, Maya thought, the condition, the complication, the other shoe dropping. "Company policy prohibits dating relationships between managers and their direct reports," he explained. "If you accept this position, you would be part of my larger department, but reporting directly to Samantha Lee, our technical lead. I would be your boss's boss." Maya frowned, uncertain where this was heading. "I understand." "What I'm saying," Ethan clarified, a hint of the warmth she'd glimpsed in his apartment returning to his expression, "is that while I couldn't ask you to dinner while you were a candidate, once you're an employee reporting to Sam, there's no policy preventing us from getting to know each other better. If you were interested." Maya blinked, processing this unexpected turn. "Are you asking me out while offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a job because you're qualified," Ethan corrected quickly. "The dinner invitation is entirely separate, with no pressure or obligation. You can say no to dinner and still take the job, or take the job and think about dinner later, or decline both," he added, though his expression suggested he hoped she wouldn't choose the latter option. The situation was so far removed from anything Maya had anticipated that she couldn't help but laugh. "This is unconventional." "About as unconventional as waking up in your future boss's apartment," Ethan pointed out, a smile tugging at his lips. "Fair point," Maya conceded, feeling some of the tension dissolve. "For clarity's sake, you're sure the job offer is based solely on my qualifications?" "Absolutely," Ethan affirmed without hesitation. "The hiring committee was unanimous, and their decision was made before I mentioned I'd met you previously. I recused myself from the final vote to avoid any appearance of impropriety." Maya nodded, satisfied with his answer. The position was everything she'd been hoping for. Challenging work, excellent compensation, and a chance to stay in the city she'd come to love. As for the dinner invitation, there was no denying the connection she'd felt with Ethan during their brief interaction before she knew who he was. "I accept the position," she said decisively, then added with a small smile, "As for dinner, I think I'd like to get settled in my new role first. Rain check? Ethan's genuine smile returned, the professional mask slipping just enough to reveal the man she'd met in his kitchen. Rain check it is. He stood, extending his hand. Welcome to Meridian Technologies, Ms. Rodriguez. We're lucky to have you. As Maya shook his hand, feeling the warm strength of his grip, she marveled at how dramatically her circumstances had changed in just 3 days. From the brink of financial disaster to a promising new career, from waking in a stranger's bed to finding unexpected possibility in the most unlikely of places. Walking out of Meridian's gleaming offices with a signed offer letter in hand, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. The path forward wasn't clear or simple. Navigating a potential relationship with someone in her professional hierarchy would require care and consideration. But for the first time in too long, the future held promise instead of dread. Her phone buzzed with a text as she reached the street. Congratulations on your new position. That rain check doesn't expire. Ethan. Maya smiled, tucking the phone away as she headed toward the train station. The Chicago skyline gleamed in, the afternoon sun, no longer seeming like a backdrop to her failure, but rather the setting for an unexpected new chapter. Whatever happened next, professionally or personally, she would face it with the same resilience that had carried her through the most challenging year of her life. And perhaps, she thought as she cast one last glance at the Meridian building, the universe had a strange sense of humor after all. Sometimes rock bottom was just the foundation for something better, even if it arrived in the form of waking up in a stranger's bed who turned out to be her new boss. Maya's first week at Meridian Technologies passed in a whirlwind of orientation. Meetings, system setups, and introductions to her new team. Her direct supervisor, Samantha Lee, was a brilliant technical lead with an intimidating reputation, but a surprisingly dry sense of humor. The AI integration project was even more cutting-edge than Maya had hoped, presenting challenges that engaged her mind completely during work hours. Through it all, she maintained a strictly professional relationship with Ethan, encountering him primarily in team-wide meetings, where he treated her with the same courteous respect he showed all employees. If anyone suspected there was more to their story, no hint of it surfaced in workplace interactions. Maya was grateful for this normalcy, for the chance to establish herself based on merit rather than rumors or speculation. By Friday afternoon, exhausted but exhilarated by the mental challenges of her new position, Maya found herself alone in the break room when Ethan entered. They hadn't spoken privately since her second interview, both seemingly committed to maintaining appropriate boundaries in the workplace. "Settling in all right?" he asked, pouring himself coffee from the high-end machine that made Maya's drip coffee maker at home seem prehistoric. "Better than I expected," Maya admitted, conscious of keeping her tone professional despite the flutter in her stomach whenever he was nearby. "Sam's team is incredible. The architecture challenges are fascinating." Ethan nodded, leaning against the counter at a respectful distance. "Sam said your contributions in yesterday's design review were impressive. She doesn't offer praise lightly." Maya felt a surge of pride. Getting recognition from Samantha was like receiving water in a desert, rare and precious. "I'm just grateful for the opportunity." A moment of silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice lowered slightly though they were alone. "About that rain check." Before he could continue, 2 developers from the mobile team entered, laughing about some coding mishap. The moment dissolved, Ethan straightening to his full height and nodding politely to Maya before exiting with his coffee. She released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, uncertain whether to feel disappointed or relieved. That evening, As Maya unlocked the door to her studio apartment, her phone buzzed with a text message. "Dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. Nothing fancy, I promise. Ethan." Maya stared at the screen, conflicting emotions washing over her. The professional part of her brain warned against complications, against risking her new position by entangling her personal life with her career. Yet another part, a part that had been dormant during months of unemployment and financial stress, responded to the simple human connection she'd felt during their first meeting, before job titles and corporate hierarchies entered the equation. After deliberating for nearly an hour, she replied, "Yes, but somewhere nobody from Meridian will see us." His response came almost immediately. "I know just the place. I'll pick you up at 7. Saturday evening found Maya changing outfits for the fourth time, scrutinizing her reflection with uncharacteristic indecision. She finally settled on dark jeans and a deep blue blouse that brought out the warm undertones of her skin, casual enough to maintain the pretense this wasn't a big deal, but nice enough to acknowledge it was definitely a date. At precisely 7 p.m., her phone buzzed with a message that Ethan was waiting outside. Rather than coming to her door, he'd respected her privacy. Another small consideration that didn't go unnoticed. Maya grabbed her leather jacket and headed downstairs, mentally preparing herself for the evening ahead. She found Ethan leaning against a sleek charcoal-grey Tesla, dressed in jeans and a casual button-down that somehow looked more expensive than her entire wardrobe. He straightened when he saw her, his smile genuine and a touch nervous. "Hi," he said simply, opening the passenger door for her. "Hi yourself," Maya replied, sliding into the luxurious vehicle and trying not to visibly react to its opulence. "Nice car." "Thanks." Ethan closed her door and circled to the driver's side. "I hope you like Italian food. I know a place that makes pasta the way my grandmother used to, before she gave up cooking and started ordering in every night." The restaurant was a small, family-owned establishment tucked away in a residential neighborhood far from downtown. With its checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wax-covered Chianti bottles, it lacked the pretension of Chicago's trendy dining scene, but exuded authentic charm. The elderly owner greeted Ethan by name, leading them to a corner table with practiced hospitality. "Ethan, too long since you visit," the man chided, his Italian accent thick but warm. "And you bring a beautiful lady this time, not boring business friends." Maya raised an eyebrow at Ethan after the owner departed to fetch wine. "Regular, I take it?" "My apartment's not far from here," he explained. "Found this place during a rainstorm my first month in Chicago. Been coming ever since." The admission surprised her. Not that he frequented a neighborhood restaurant, but that he'd chosen to share something personal, a place that clearly held meaning for him rather than an impressive hotspot designed to impress. Conversation flowed more easily than Maya had anticipated. Outside the office context, Ethan was thoughtful and attentive, asking questions about her background and aspirations with genuine interest. She learned he'd grown up in Seattle, the son of a software engineer and a high school English teacher, his path to tech seemingly predetermined from childhood. "Everyone assumed I'd follow my father's footsteps into programming," he explained, twirling pasta on his fork. "But I discovered I was better at seeing the big picture, how systems connect, how people collaborate, than writing elegant code. Hence the move to management." Maya asked, sipping the excellent red wine the owner had selected. Ethan nodded. "I understand enough code to know what's possible, but I'm better at bringing together the right people and clearing obstacles from their path." He gave her a considering look, like recognizing talent even when it arrives in unexpected ways. Maya felt her cheeks warm, knowing he was referring to their unusual first meeting. "About that night," she began, feeling it was finally time to address the elephant in the room. "I should explain." "You don't owe me any explanations," Ethan interrupted gently. "We've all had rough days." "Still, I'd like you to know," Maya insisted. "That night, I'd just received the interview invitation after 6 months of rejections. My friends insisted on celebrating, but I'd been skipping meals to make rent, so the drinks hit harder than expected." She met his eyes directly. "It wasn't a regular occurrence." Ethan nodded, understanding softening his expression. "Life throws curveballs sometimes. 6 months is a long time to stay resilient." "Almost wasn't," Maya admitted, the wine and intimate setting loosening her typical guardedness. "That interview was my last shot before moving back to my parents' place. Had the conversation with my landlord about breaking my lease and everything." "Yet you kept trying," Ethan observed. "That persistence is exactly why you're an asset to Meridian." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they shared tiramisu, discovering common ground in their taste in music and mutual love of hiking. Despite Ethan's admission, he rarely found time for it anymore. When the check arrived, Maya reached in for her wallet, but Ethan gently placed his hand over hers. "Please, let me. Next time can be your treat if you prefer." The casual mention of next time sent a small thrill through her. Still, a lifetime of independence made her hesitate. "I can cover my half." "I know you can," Ethan said, understanding in his eyes. "But I invited you, and before you worry, this isn't about power dynamics or making you feel obligated. It's just dinner with someone I'm enjoying getting to know." Something in his sincerity convinced her to relent. "Next time is definitely on me then." Outside, the early autumn evening had turned cool, stars visible despite the city's light pollution. They walked slowly back to his car, conversation flowing naturally until they reached the vehicle. "Thank you for tonight," Maya said, suddenly awkward in the moment of transition. "It was nice to talk outside of work." "I'd like to see you again," Ethan replied directly. "But I understand if you want to keep things professional, given the circumstances." Maya considered his words, appreciating his straightforwardness. "I'd like that too," she admitted. "Seeing you again, I mean. But we should be careful," he finished for her. "I agree completely." The drive back to her apartment was comfortable, filled with easy conversation about a documentary series they'd both watched recently. When they arrived, Ethan walked her to the entrance of her building but maintained a respectful distance. "Good night, Maya," he said simply, his smile warm but undemanding. "Good night," she replied. Then, following an impulse, she stepped forward and placed a quick kiss on his cheek. "Thank you for dinner." His surprised smile stayed with her as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, a flutter of possibility warming her chest, despite the practical complications. The following weeks established a rhythm that balanced professional boundaries with their growing personal connection. At Meridian, they maintained appropriate distance, their interactions limited to necessary work discussions, always conducted with proper professional decorum. Outside the office, they began spending more time together. Dinner at obscure neighborhood restaurants, a Saturday afternoon at the Art Institute, morning runs along the lakefront. Maya's position at Meridian flourished alongside their cautious relationship. Her contributions to the AI integration project earned recognition from senior leadership, and Samantha increasingly trusted her with complex architectural decisions. For the first time in her career, Maya felt not just professionally secure, but genuinely valued for her technical abilities. 1 month into her new job, Samantha stopped by her desk late on a Friday afternoon. "Got plans this weekend?" her supervisor asked, perching on the edge of Maya's desk. "Nothing special," Maya replied carefully, conscious that her weekend plans often involved Ethan now. "Probably catch up on some reading." "Why?" "The quarterly hackathon is next weekend," Sam explained. "Leadership team is finalizing project proposals today. Sullivan asked specifically if you'd be participating." Maya's heart skipped at the mention of Ethan, though she kept her expression neutral. I hadn't heard about it yet. 2-day event. Teams compete to prototype solutions to business challenges, Sam explained. Winners get funding to develop their ideas. Great visibility opportunity. She studied Maya with shrewd eyes. Sullivan doesn't usually track specific participants. Interesting, he asked about you. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks, but maintained her composure. I'm still new. Maybe he's monitoring how recent hires integrate? Sam's expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced, but wouldn't press further. Whatever the reason, you should participate. I'm leading a team focused on natural language processing improvements. Could use your expertise. I'll be there, Maya promised, relief washing over her when Sam nodded and departed. That evening, as Maya was preparing a simple dinner in her apartment, her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Free tomorrow? Weather's perfect for that hike we talked about. They had discussed wanting to explore some of the forest preserves outside the city, but hadn't made concrete plans. Maya responded immediately. Sam mentioned you asked if I was joining the hackathon. His reply came quickly. Should have told you myself. Didn't want to pressure you. All department heads track. Participation. Maya considered this, wondering if she was being overly sensitive. Before she could respond, another message appeared. If this is moving too fast or complicated, I understand. Your career comes first. The sincere consideration in his message touched her. After careful thought, she replied, Hiking sounds perfect, and yes, I'm joining Sam's hackathon team. The next day, as they hiked through the golden autumn foliage of Waterfall Glen Forest Preserve, the complicated dynamics of their relationship temporarily faded against the simple pleasure of fresh air and beautiful surroundings. Miles from the office, with no chance of running into colleagues, they could simply be Ethan and Maya, two people enjoying each other's company. I used to hike every weekend in Seattle, Ethan shared as they paused to admire a particularly spectacular view. Something about being in nature recalibrates my perspective. Maya nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. During those months of unemployment, I'd walk for hours in parks when I couldn't afford to do anything else. Kept me sane, when nothing else would. Ethan studied her profile, admiration evident in his expression. You never really talk about that time. Must have been incredibly difficult. Maya was silent for a moment, weighing how much to share. It was, she finally admitted. Lost my apartment in San Francisco, moved to a shared place in Chicago thinking opportunities would be better. Each rejection chipped away at confidence I didn't know was fragile. She met his gaze directly. The hardest part wasn't the financial stress, though that was bad enough. It was feeling invisible. Like all my skills and education and experience suddenly meant nothing. Ethan reached for her hand, his touch gentle but grounding. For what it's worth, your resilience through that is as impressive as your technical skills. Maybe more so. The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply. On impulse, she leaned forward and kissed him. Their first real kiss, soft and questioning at first, then deepening as he responded with careful intensity. When they finally separated, breathless and slightly stunned, Maya couldn't help laughing at the unexpectedness of it all. Not exactly how I planned this hike going. I'm not complaining, Ethan replied, his smile warming his entire face. Though I should probably disclose that I've been thinking about doing that since you woke up in my apartment looking adorably confused. Adorably confused is generous, Maya countered, remembering her hangover and embarrassment. Mortified and disheveled would be more accurate. Beautiful either way, Ethan said simply, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with tender familiarity. even when you were explaining algorithm optimization in your interview and completely intimidating the senior engineers. The rest of the hike passed in comfortable conversation, interspersed with moments of comfortable silence. By the time they returned to the city, something had shifted between them, a deeper connection, an acknowledgement that whatever was developing between them was worth the careful navigation their professional situation required. The following Friday, as Maya prepared for the weekend hackathon, she received an email from HR requesting a meeting Monday morning. The message gave no indication of the purpose, but anxiety immediately bloomed in her chest. Had someone noticed? Her relationship with Ethan? Was her position in jeopardy before she'd even passed her probationary period? She considered texting Ethan, but decided against it. If this was about their relationship, involving him would only complicate matters. Instead, she channeled her nervous energy into preparation for the hackathon, reviewing Samantha's project proposal and researching potential approaches. The hackathon itself proved an exhilarating challenge, Samantha's team tackling an ambitious natural language processing enhancement that kept them coding late into Saturday night. Maya lost herself in the technical problems, momentarily forgetting her concerns about Monday's meeting as she collaborated with colleagues who increasingly respected her expertise. Sunday evening, exhausted but satisfied with their team's final presentation, Maya finally texted Ethan, "HR wants to meet Monday morning, no explanation given." His response was immediate, "Want me to find out why?" "No," she replied after consideration. "Better if I handle it directly, just nervous." "You've done nothing wrong," came his reassuring response, "but I understand the concern. Call me after if you want to talk." Monday morning, Maya arrived at Meridian early, her stomach in knots despite Ethan's reassurance. She'd spent hours reviewing company policies, confirming there was no explicit rule against their relationship, given their indirect reporting structure. Still, perception mattered in corporate environments, and she was acutely aware of potential gossip if their relationship became public knowledge. The HR director, a composed woman named Vivian Chen, welcomed Maya with professional warmth. "Thank you for making time this morning. I understand you participated in the hackathon this weekend. How did that go?" The casual question threw Maya off balance. "It was challenging but rewarding. Our team developed a promising approach to contextual language understanding." "Excellent," Vivian nodded, making a note. "That's actually tangentially related to why I asked to meet with you today." Maya braced herself, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Your performance since joining Meridian has been exceptional," Vivian continued. "Samantha Lee has submitted glowing reviews of your technical contributions, and your hackathon participation demonstrated initiative and teamwork." "Thank you," Maya responded cautiously, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. "We have an unexpected opportunity I'd like to discuss with you," Vivian explained, sliding a folder across the desk. "Meridian is launching a new AI ethics initiative in partnership with several major universities. We're assembling a small team to develop governance frameworks and technical safeguards for our AI systems." Maya opened the folder to find a detailed description of a new position, Senior Technical Ethics Specialist, reporting directly to the Chief Technology Officer rather than through Ethan's organization. "This role would be a lateral move in terms of seniority," Vivian explained, "but with greater visibility and strategic impact. The selection committee believes your technical background, combined with your thoughtful approach, makes you an ideal candidate." Relief washed over Maya, followed quickly by excitement as she scanned the position description. The role represented exactly the kind of meaningful work she'd always hoped to do, combining technical expertise with broader societal considerations. "I'm flattered," she said sincerely, But I've only been with Meridian for a short time. Are you certain I'm qualified? Actually, Vivian said with a slight smile, it was Ethan Sullivan who initially suggested you for consideration, though the final recommendation came from the CTO after reviewing your background and hackathon performance. Maya's heart skipped. Ethan had recommended her for a position outside his organization, a move that would eliminate any potential conflict in their personal relationship while advancing her career in a meaningful direction. The gesture spoke volumes about his character and his genuine support for her professional growth. I'd like to emphasize that accepting or declining this opportunity will have no impact on your current position, Vivian added. We value your contributions to the AI integration team and support whatever decision you make. When would the new role begin? Maya asked, mind racing with possibilities. 2 weeks from now, if you accept, Vivian replied. Take a few days to consider the offer. We'd need your decision by Thursday. As Maya left the meeting, emotions swirled through her. Relief that the HR discussion had nothing to do with her relationship with Ethan, excitement about the unexpected opportunity, and a deep appreciation for Ethan's behind-the-scenes support of her career without presuming to make decisions for her. Outside the HR offices, Maya checked her phone to find a message from Ethan. Everything okay? Instead of responding immediately, she headed toward the executive floor, determination driving her steps. Ethan's assistant looked up in surprise. When Maya appeared in the doorway, "Is he available for a quick conversation?" Maya asked politely. "He's between meetings for about 10 minutes, the assistant confirmed after checking the calendar. Go ahead in. Ethan looked up from his computer when she entered, concern evident in his expression. "Maya, how did the meeting go?" She closed the door behind her, maintaining a professional distance despite the urge to close the gap between them. "You recommended me for the ethics initiative." It wasn't a question, but Ethan nodded confirmation. "You're the most qualified person I know for that role. Your technical skills combined with your perspective on real-world impacts." He paused, studying her expression. "Are you upset?" "No," Maya said honestly. "I'm touched and impressed that you found a way to support my career while also simplifying our personal situation." Relief softened his features. "I wanted you to have the opportunity regardless. The simplified personal situation is a welcome side effect." He hesitated, then added, "Whatever you decide about the position, I support you completely." In that moment, Maya realized how far she'd come from the desperate, uncertain woman who'd woken up in a stranger's apartment just 2 months earlier. She had regained not just financial stability, but professional confidence, personal hope, and an unexpected connection with someone who saw her complete value, not just as an employee or a romantic interest, but as a whole person worthy of support in all aspects of her life. "I haven't decided yet," she told him, a small smile playing at her lips, "but I'm leaning toward accepting." "Dinner tonight?" Ethan suggested, "to celebrate the offer, regardless of what you decide." "My place," Maya countered. "I promised I'd cook for you next time, remember?" As she turned to leave, maintaining the professional demeanor appropriate for his office, Maya felt a profound sense of alignment she'd never experienced before. Her professional path and personal happiness, no longer in conflict, but rather reinforcing each other in unexpected ways. The woman who had woken up mortified in a stranger's bed 2 months ago could never have imagined that same stranger would become not just her boss, but a catalyst for positive transformation in every aspect of her life. The universe, it seemed, sometimes delivered exactly what you needed in the most unexpected packaging, and recognizing those gifts, however strangely wrapped, made all the difference. Maya's decision to accept the ethics initiative position marked the beginning of a transformative period both professionally and personally. The transition happened swiftly. One Monday, she was clearing out her desk in the engineering department, and the next, she was settling into a new office on the executive floor, just 2 doors down from the CTO's suite. The physical proximity to leadership wasn't lost on her. This role carried visibility and influence beyond anything she'd anticipated when joining Meridian. "We're breaking new ground here," explained Dr. Eleanor Wright, the Chief Technology Officer and Maya's new direct supervisor, during their first one-on-one meeting. A renowned computer scientist with decades of experience, Eleanor had the rare combination of technical brilliance and genuine warmth that immediately put Maya at ease. "Most tech companies treat ethics as a PR exercise," Eleanor continued, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Meridian wants to build it into our DNA. Your team will have real authority to review and recommend changes to any AI system we develop." "My team," Maya echoed, suddenly registering that the organizational chart on the wall showed several positions reporting to her role. Eleanor smiled, crow's feet deepening around kind eyes. "We're hiring 3 technical specialists with different backgrounds. You'll lead them. Intimidated?" Maya considered this honestly. 6 months ago, the prospect would have terrified her. Now she felt a flutter of nerves, but also a surprising confidence. "Challenged," she corrected, "in a good way." "That's the right answer," Eleanor approved. "I've been watching your contributions since you arrived. You have technical chops and something rarer, perspective. Most people who've always succeeded can't imagine systems failing. You've seen both sides." The observation struck Maya as unexpectedly perceptive. Her period of unemployment, which she'd viewed as a humiliating setback, was being recognized as valuable experience that shaped her perspective in ways purely theoretical knowledge couldn't match. As Maya immersed herself in building the ethics initiative from the ground up, her relationship with Ethan evolved into something deeper and more significant than either had anticipated. Their professional connection had been severed cleanly. Her new role reported through an entirely different chain of command, allowing their personal relationship to develop without workplace complications. They still maintained discretion around colleagues, but the pressure of secrecy had lifted. They occasionally arrived at company events together, their connection evident to observant eyes, but never flaunted inappropriately. When questions arose, they answered honestly but briefly, refusing to feed the corporate rumor mill. 3 months into her new position, Maya found herself facing the first major test of her role's purpose and power. Meridian's flagship AI customer service product, developed by Ethan's team before Maya joined the company, was preparing a significant upgrade, incorporating more sophisticated emotional analysis capabilities. The technical implementation was brilliant, Maya had to admit, as she reviewed the specifications. The system could detect subtle vocal cues indicating customer frustration, anxiety, or satisfaction, then adjust its responses accordingly. From a purely engineering perspective, it represented a remarkable achievement. But as Maya dug deeper into the design documents, troubling questions emerged. The training data showed significant gaps in emotional pattern recognition across cultural and linguistic backgrounds. Worse, the system was designed to flag difficult customers for special handling without clear parameters defining that designation. "We need to delay this release," Maya announced during the cross-functional review meeting, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. The room fell silent, executives and engineers alike staring at her with expressions ranging from surprise to outright hostility. "On what grounds?" demanded Richard Patel, the marketing VP who had already begun the promotional campaign for the upgrade. "Significant ethical concerns," Maya replied, pulling up her detailed analysis on the projection screen. The emotional recognition system shows bias patterns that could result in discriminatory customer experiences. Additionally, the difficult customer designation lacks transparent criteria, creating potential for algorithmic discrimination. As she walked through her findings, Maya was acutely aware of Ethan sitting quietly at the far end of the conference table. This was the first time her role had placed her in direct opposition to his team's work. Though they had discussed the possibility theoretically, the reality felt more complicated than either had anticipated. The discussion grew heated, with marketing and sales executives arguing that the competitive advantage outweighed theoretical concerns, while Maya stood firm on the ethical implications. "It's not theoretical," she countered, displaying test results from her team's evaluation. "Our simulations show a 34% higher rate of difficult flags for customers with non-American accents. That's not an acceptable margin of error, it's a pattern of systematic bias." Eleanor Wright, who had remained silent throughout the debate, finally spoke. "Maya's role exists precisely for this reason. If her team has identified substantial ethical concerns, we need to address them before release." She turned to Maya. "What's your recommendation? Scrap the feature entirely?" Maya took a deep breath. "No, the core technology is sound, but it needs refinement. I believe we can address the bias issues with supplemental training data and explicit fairness criteria. My team has outlined a remediation plan that could have the upgrade ready within 6 weeks instead of 2. The room erupted in overlapping voices, sales protesting the delay, engineering debating the technical approach, legal considering disclosure. Requirements. Through it all, Ethan remained notably quiet, his expression unreadable. Finally, the CEO, who had been observing silently from the head of the table, raised a hand for quiet. "We implement Maya's recommendations," he decided. "Meridian's commitment to ethical AI isn't just marketing. It's how we do business. 6 weeks is a reasonable delay to get this right." As the meeting adjourned, Maya gathered her materials, deliberately avoiding looking toward Ethan. This was the moment she had feared, professional conflict creating personal tension. When most attendees had filtered out, she finally glanced up to find him standing nearby, waiting. "Walk with me?" he suggested, his tone giving nothing away. They moved silently through the corridors until they reached a small terrace overlooking the city, a space rarely used during winter months. The December air was brisk, providing guaranteed privacy from colleagues. "I owe you an apology," Ethan said, surprising her completely. "You do?" Maya asked, confused. "The bias issues you identified, we should have caught those earlier. The team got so focused on the technical breakthrough that we missed the broader implications." He met her eyes directly. "You were right to flag it." Relief washed over Maya. Tension she hadn't realized she was carrying melting away. "I was worried." "You'd see it as a direct challenge. 3 months ago I might have," Ethan admitted. "Your analysis was thorough and the recommendations constructive. That's exactly what your role is supposed to do." A smile tugged at his lips. "Doesn't hurt that you were right either." Maya laughed, the remaining tension dissolving. "So, we're okay, professionally and otherwise?" "More than okay," Ethan assured her, "though I won't deny a few uncomfortable moments when you were systematically dismantling my team's work in front of the executive committee. Consider it practice for when we disagree about whose turn it is to do dishes," Maya suggested lightly. Ethan's expression shifted, something serious and tender replacing his casual smile. "Is that where we're headed? Dish disputes?" The question hung in the air between them, carrying implications about their future that neither had explicitly addressed until now. 3 months of dating had deepened their connection, but they'd carefully avoided discussions of long-term plans. "I think maybe it is," Maya answered softly, surprising herself with the certainty she felt. "If that's something you might want." 2. Ethan took her hand, his much larger one warm despite the winter chill. "I bought a second toothbrush for my bathroom the day after our first date," he confessed. "I've been waiting for the right moment to suggest you might want to use it more regularly." Something about this simple domestic admission touched Maya, more deeply than any grand romantic gesture could have. In that moment, on a cold terrace overlooking the city, where she'd nearly lost everything before finding so much more, Maya recognized that her life had transformed in ways she could never have predicted. "Ask me," she said quietly, meeting his gaze with steady certainty. Ethan didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Move in with me? Not because it's practical or convenient, but because I love waking up beside you and hate every morning when you're not there." Maya's answer was to close the distance between them. Her kiss, carrying all the affirmation words couldn't adequately express. The following weekend found them at Maya's apartment, sorting through her belongings to determine what would move to Ethan's place and what would be donated or stored. The process was surprisingly emotional, each item carrying memories of her struggle to remain independent during the darkest months of unemployment. "I bought this coffee maker with my last $20, she explained, running her fingers over the cheap plastic machine. "The splurge felt irresponsible when I could barely afford rent, but making coffee at home instead of buying it saved money in the long run." Ethan regarded the humble appliance with unexpected reverence. "It should come with us," he decided, despite his professional-grade espresso system. Some things matter beyond their utility. As they worked, Maya's phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor. "Breakthrough on the emotional recognition system. Your training data recommendations solved the accent bias issue. Engineering wants to review with you Monday." Maya showed the message to Ethan, pride evident in her expression. "The fix worked." "Never doubted it would," he replied, setting aside a box of books they'd agreed to keep. "Your approach was elegant, addressing the root cause rather than just masking symptoms." "Speaking of root causes," Maya said, gathering courage for a conversation she'd been postponing, "there's something we should discuss before I officially move in." Ethan sat on the edge of her bed, giving her his full attention. "That sounds serious." "It is, but not in a bad way," Maya assured him, settling beside him. "You know, my financial situation has improved dramatically since joining Meridian, but I'm still rebuilding after burning through my savings last year." "Maya, I've never cared about—" She gently placed her fingers against his lips, stopping his protest. "I know, but I care. When I move in, I want to contribute fairly to our household, not necessarily equally, since our incomes are different, but proportionally." Ethan studied her face, understanding dawning in his eyes. "This is about independence. It's about partnership," Maya corrected. "I fell in love with you, not your resources. I need to know we're building something together, not that I'm being taken care of." Instead of arguing, Ethan nodded slowly. "I respect that. We'll figure out an arrangement that feels fair to both of us." He took her hand, his expression turning serious. "But I need you to promise something in return." "What's that?" "If circumstances ever change, if you face challenges again, like you did last year, you'll let me support you without seeing it as a threat to your independence. Partners carry each other when needed." The request was reasonable, Maya realized, and addressed her unspoken fear that accepting help meant returning to the desperate vulnerability she'd experienced during unemployment. "I promise," she agreed, "though I hope it won't come to that." "Life rarely goes according to plan," Ethan said, a hint of his own past evident in the words. "That's what makes having someone beside you so important." By Sunday evening, Maya's apartment was transformed. Essential items packed for moving, unwanted things donated, the space echoing with emptiness. Standing in the center of the room where she'd spent countless hours worrying about her future, Maya felt a profound sense of closure. "Ready?" Ethan asked from the doorway, the last box in his arms. Maya took a final look around, silently thanking the space that had sheltered her through the hardest period of her life. "Ready?" she confirmed, closing the door on one chapter, as she stepped confidently toward the next. The following months brought adjustment and growth as they learned to blend their lives in ways both challenging and rewarding. Ethan's spacious apartment gradually incorporated elements of Maya's aesthetic, transforming from a stylish but somewhat impersonal space into a true home that reflected both their personalities. At work, Maya's ethics initiative gained prominence, as Meridian positioned itself as a leader in responsible AI development. Her team expanded to 5 specialists, and she found herself speaking at industry conferences, her unique perspective on technology's human impact resonating with diverse audiences. Spring arrived with unexpected news. Eleanor Wright announced her retirement, creating a leadership vacuum in Meridian's technical hierarchy. The company initiated a search for her replacement, considering both internal and external candidates for the critical CTO position. "You should apply," Eleanor told Maya during their weekly meeting, the suggestion catching Maya completely off guard. "Me? I've only been with Meridian for 8 months, Maya protested, and in a leadership role for just 5 of those. Eleanor's expression remained serious. The role needs someone who understands both technical excellence and ethical implications. You've demonstrated that rare combination. Yes, you're less experienced than some candidates, but your perspective is precisely what Meridian needs as AI becomes central to our product strategy." Maya left the meeting in a daze, equal parts flattered and terrified by the suggestion. That evening, she shared Eleanor's comments with Ethan as they prepared dinner together in their now shared kitchen. "She's right," Ethan said simply, pausing, his vegetable chopping to meet Maya's eyes. "You should absolutely apply." "It feels presumptuous," Maya admitted, stirring the pasta sauce with more vigor than necessary. "There are directors with years more experience, including you." Ethan set down his knife, moving to stand beside her. "First, I have no interest in the CTO role. My strengths are in product development, not setting technical vision. Second, and more importantly, you've accomplished more in 8 months than most executives do in years." "That's an exaggeration," Maya protested weakly. "It's not," Ethan insisted. "The ethics framework you've developed is already being adopted by other companies. The bias detection tools your team created are revolutionary. Eleanor sees what I see, someone with the rare ability to connect technical innovation with human impact." Maya turned off the burner, giving him her full attention. "If I applied, it would change things between us at work again. You'd be reporting to me in the organizational structure." "True," Ethan acknowledged, "which would be an adjustment. But we've navigated professional boundaries before. The question is whether you want the role, not how it might affect us." Maya considered this carefully. "I don't know if I'm ready, but the opportunity to shape how AI is developed at that level, it's compelling." "Then apply," Ethan encouraged. "Worst case, you gain visibility and interview experience. Best case," he grinned, "I get to say I'm dating the CTO." Maya laughed, some of her anxiety dissolving. "You'd be dating your boss, technically." "Technically, I'd be dating the woman who once woke up mortified in my bed," Ethan countered, pulling her into an embrace. "Everything since then has been a bonus." The CTO selection process stretched over 6 intensive weeks. Maya submitted her application, complete with a visionary proposal for integrating ethical considerations into Meridian's technical roadmap. To her surprise, she advanced through initial screenings to final interviews with the board of directors. The night before her final presentation, Maya found herself unable to sleep, doubts creeping in despite her thorough preparation. Slipping from bed, careful not to wake Ethan, she padded to the living room and curled up on the window seat overlooking the city lights. She was still there an hour later when Ethan found her, wrapped in a throw blanket and staring out at the pre-dawn skyline. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly, settling beside her. Maya shook her head. "Just thinking about how much has changed in 10 months. This time last year, I was selling furniture to make rent, convinced my career was over before it really began. And now you're interviewing for C-suite positions," Ethan observed, pride evident in his voice. "That's what keeps me awake," Maya admitted. "Part of me still feels like that desperate person, not qualified for this level of responsibility." Ethan was quiet for a moment, considering her words. "You know what I see when I look at you?" he finally asked. Maya turned toward him, curious despite her melancholy mood. "I see someone who never gave up, even when giving up would have been completely understandable. Someone who maintained her principles and integrity through hardship. Someone whose compassion for others was forged through personal struggle." His eyes held hers steadily. "That's exactly the kind of person who should be making decisions about technology that affects people's lives." The simple truth in his words penetrated the cloud of doubt surrounding her. "I still might not get the position," she pointed out. "Then Meridian's loss will be somebody else's gain," Ethan replied with absolute confidence. "But I think they're smart enough to recognize what they have in you." The following afternoon, after Maya delivered her final presentation to the board, she returned to her office to find Eleanor waiting with an uncharacteristic smile. "They're still deliberating," the older woman said, "but I wanted to be the first to tell you that your presentation was exceptional. Regardless of their decision, you've proven yourself a formidable candidate." "Thank you," Maya replied sincerely, "for the feedback and for encouraging me to apply in the first place. I wouldn't have considered it without your push." Eleanor's expression turned reflective. 10 years ago, I almost left tech entirely, had my resignation letter written after a particularly brutal product launch where I was the only woman in leadership. My mentor convinced me to stay, said the industry needed different voices, precisely because the homogeneity produced blind spots. "She was right," Maya observed. "He," Eleanor corrected with a small smile. "And yes, he was. Now I'm paying it forward." She rose to leave, then paused at the door. "Whatever happens with this position, remember that your journey itself has value. The obstacles you've overcome inform your vision in ways others can't replicate." 2 days later, Maya received the call she'd been both hoping for and dreading. The board had selected her as Meridian's new Chief Technology Officer, effective, immediately following a 2-week transition period with Eleanor. That evening, Ethan surprised her with a small celebration at home. Her favorite takeout, a bottle of champagne, and a simple card that read, "To the woman who proves that rock bottom can be a foundation, congratulations on rebuilding something extraordinary." As they toasted her new position, Maya reflected on the incredible journey from that disorienting morning in a stranger's bed to this moment of professional triumph and personal fulfillment. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but each challenge and connection had formed essential pieces of the life she now embraced. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "That sometimes the most important turning points don't announce themselves," Maya replied. 10 months ago, I thought waking up in your apartment was the most mortifying moment of my life. I had no idea it was actually the beginning of everything good." Ethan smiled, the same warmth in his eyes that had first put her at ease that morning in his kitchen. "To unexpected beginnings," he proposed, raising his glass. "And foundations built from rock bottom," Maya added, completing the toast. As they clinked glasses, Maya felt a profound sense of arrival, not at a final destination, but at a viewpoint from which she could appreciate how far she'd come and glimpse the promising path still stretching before her. The woman who had once been desperate enough to sell her belongings for rent money now held both professional power and personal fulfillment, her transformation a testament to resilience, opportunity, and the courage to accept both help and challenge when they appeared. In unexpected forms, the journey hadn't ended. In many ways, it was just beginning. But whatever challenges awaited, Maya now faced them not from a place of scarcity and fear, but from a foundation of strength, purpose, and partnership that even her darkest moments had helped create. Maya's first year as Chief Technology Officer transformed Meridian Technologies and reshaped her understanding of leadership, power, and possibility. The transition from leading a small ethics team to overseeing the company's entire technical vision initially felt overwhelming. During her first week, she'd wake before dawn, anxiety tightening her chest as she mentally reviewed the hundreds of decisions now resting on her shoulders. "You're going to wear a path in the bedroom carpet," Ethan observed one morning at 4:30 a.m., finding her pacing with a notebook filled with scribbled concerns and questions. "There's so much I don't know yet," Maya admitted, sinking onto the edge of the bed. Quantum computing applications, hardware integration timelines, the acquisition target in Singapore. Ethan sat up, his expression thoughtful rather than dismissive. "You know what makes a great leader?" he asked. "Not having all the answers, but knowing how to find them and whose expertise to trust." The observation shifted something fundamental in Maya's approach. Instead of trying to master every technical domain overnight, she began systematic meetings with each department head, asking questions that revealed both their knowledge and their character. She discovered which leaders prioritized innovation over stability, which valued collaborative process over individual brilliance, and most importantly, which understood the human implications of technical decisions. 6 months into her tenure, Maya introduced ethical guardrails, a framework requiring every product and feature to pass not just technical quality checks, but ethical impact assessments before development began. The approach initially met resistance from teams accustomed to building first and considering consequences later. "This will slow innovation," argued Lawrence Chen, a brilliant but prickly VP of research, during a heated leadership meeting. "Our competitors will outpace us while we're hand-wringing over theoretical harms." Maya met his challenge directly, her confidence in the boardroom now matching her technical expertise. Actually, addressing ethical concerns at the design stage prevents costly redevelopment later. We're not slowing innovation, we're making it sustainable. She pulled up slides showing the emotional recognition system her ethics team had flagged the previous year. This feature required a 6-week delay and complete retraining because bias wasn't considered from the start. Under ethical guardrails, those issues would have been identified before a single line of code was written. The data was irrefutable. Projects developed under Maya's new framework were reaching the market with fewer critical bugs, higher customer satisfaction, and significantly reduced post-launch fixes. By the end of her first year as CTO, even the most skeptical executives had become converts. "The board is beyond impressed," Meridian CEO told her during her annual review. "You've transformed our development process and positioned us as industry leaders in responsible AI. Several major clients have cited our ethical approach as their primary reason for choosing Meridian over competitors." Professional success brought new challenges to Maya and Ethan's relationship. Her elevated position meant longer hours, frequent travel, and the intense scrutiny that came with C-suite visibility. Whereas once they'd worried about keeping their relationship appropriately private. Now industry publications speculated about their personal life as part of profiles on Maya's rapid rise. Rising star CTO finds romance and career at Meridian. Read one particularly cringeworthy headline that Ethan discovered one morning over coffee. "At least they mentioned your technical accomplishments before our relationship," he observed, sliding the tablet across the breakfast bar so Maya could see the article. "Though I take issue with being described as your supportive partner, without mentioning that I actually do have a job here too." Maya laughed. The sound lightening the kitchen after a week of intense product decisions had left her tense and distracted. "Would you prefer arm candy because you are exceptionally decorative?" Ethan's mock offense dissolved into a genuine smile. "You know what I'm proudest of?" he asked, his tone shifting to something more sincere. "Not that you've become CTO, though that's remarkable. It's how you've stayed fundamentally yourself through all of it." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, pausing with her coffee mug halfway to her lips. "You still program for fun on weekends. You still mentor junior engineers. You still keep that cheap coffee maker from your studio apartment right next to the fancy espresso machine." His eyes held hers across the breakfast bar. "Success changes many people. It hasn't changed your core." The observation touched her deeply, a validation she hadn't realized she needed. In the whirlwind of executive responsibilities, Maya sometimes feared losing connection with the hands-on technical work that had initially drawn her to the field. As their second year together approached, Maya realized they'd never properly celebrated their unusual anniversary, the morning she'd woken disoriented in Ethan's apartment. The date had passed unremarked the previous year, amid her CTO transition, but this time she secretly planned a meaningful commemoration. On a crisp Saturday morning, almost exactly 2 years after their first meeting, Maya woke Ethan with gentle kisses. "Get dressed," she instructed cryptically. "Casual clothes. We have somewhere to be." "Mysterious morning adventures?" he questioned, intrigued but compliant. "Should I be concerned?" "Let's just say I'm returning a favor," Maya replied with a secretive smile. She drove them to a modest bar in Wicker Park, the same establishment where she'd celebrated her Meridian interview invitation with friends 2 years earlier, drinking one too many cocktails that led to their unexpected first meeting. "This is where it all began," she explained as recognition dawned on Ethan's face, "though I was considerably less clear-headed when I left." Inside, she'd arranged a private breakfast in the normally closed morning hours. The table was set with mimosas, pastries, and a small wrapped package. "Happy anniversary," Maya said, suddenly feeling a touch of vulnerability. Not the conventional kind, but important nonetheless. Ethan's expression softened with understanding and something deeper. "The beginning of everything," he agreed, raising his glass in toast. After they'd eaten, Maya pushed the small package toward him. "This isn't exactly a traditional anniversary gift." Ethan unwrapped it curiously to reveal a key card in a simple holder. His questioning look prompted her explanation. "It's access to a private lab space I've set up," she elaborated. "For the past year, you've supported my career ascent while putting some of your own technical passions on hold. This space is for your moonshot project, the adaptive learning system you've talked about developing." Ethan stared at the card, visibly moved. "You remembered?" "Of course I did," Maya replied softly. "You listened to all my dreams when I had nothing. Now that I can, I want to support yours." The adaptive learning platform had been Ethan's personal passion for years, a system designed to help children with learning differences receive personalized education, matching their unique cognitive patterns. Despite his professional success, in commercial technology, this project addressing educational inequality had remained closest to his heart. "The space is fully equipped," Maya continued, "and I've arranged for you to have protected time each week to work on it. Meridian resources at your disposal, but the intellectual property remains entirely yours. Maya, Ethan seemed to struggle for words, an unusual circumstance for him. No one has ever understood this part of me enough to support it this way. You saw me at my worst and recognized my potential, Maya said simply. I'm just returning the favor. Their celebration continued through the day, a walking tour of significant places in their shared history, including the hospital where Ethan had taken Maya for coffee after a particularly grueling product launch, and the lakefront path where they'd shared their first real conversation about dreams beyond career ambitions. That evening back in their apartment, now truly theirs, with Maya's name added to the lease and her presence evident in every room, Ethan surprised her with his own anniversary gesture. I considered jewelry, he admitted, handing her an envelope, but this seemed more fitting for us. Inside, Maya found documentation for a newly established scholarship fund, the Rock Bottom Foundation, providing emergency financial support to tech professionals facing career disruption due to industry changes, health issues, or family needs. It's funded initially with my inheritance, Ethan explained, but structured so others can contribute. The selection committee includes people who've experienced career setbacks themselves. Maya stared at the papers, deeply moved by how perfectly the gift honored their journey. This is exactly right, she said, voice thick with emotion, turning our story into something that helps others rebuild. The scholarship includes mentorship, not just money, Ethan continued, because sometimes having someone believe in you matters as much as financial support. As they celebrated into the evening, Maya reflected on how profoundly her life had transformed in 2 years. From unemployed and desperate to leading a major technology company, from waking disoriented in a stranger's apartment to building a life partnership based on mutual respect and understanding, the journey seemed almost impossible when viewed, from beginning to present. Yet each step had built logically upon the previous one, challenges becoming opportunities, failures transformed into foundations for future success. The universe hadn't suddenly delivered everything she wanted on a silver platter. It had presented moments of choice, connections worth nurturing, and opportunities disguised as embarrassments. Summer brought a new inflection point in their relationship. Ethan's adaptive learning project had progressed rapidly with the dedicated lab space and resources Maya had provided. Early trials in partner schools showed promising results for students, previously struggling in traditional classroom settings. The platform needs its own organizational structure to grow properly, Ethan explained one evening as they walked along the Chicago River. It's ready to become more than a side project. You're thinking of leaving Meridian, Maya realized, the thought simultaneously surprising and yet somehow expected. Ethan nodded, watching her reaction carefully. I've been approached about educational technology leadership roles, but those feel like lateral moves. This project needs singular focus to reach its potential. You should do it, Maya said without hesitation, squeezing his hand. Launch it as a non-profit. You've talked about educational access being your true passion since we first met. Relief visibly washed over him. I wasn't sure how you'd feel. Our professional connection at Meridian has been part of our story from the beginning. Our story isn't about working at the same company, Maya pointed out. It's about supporting each other's growth, especially when it takes us in different directions. The conversation shifted to practical considerations, timing, funding, whether Ethan would need to travel more initially to establish partnerships with school districts. Yet beneath the logistics lay a deeper evolution in their relationship, a willingness to embrace change rather than cling to familiar patterns. 2 weeks later, Maya arrived home to find Ethan in the kitchen, attempting an elaborate recipe with his characteristic focus and precision. The dining table was set with candles and their best dishes, music playing softly in the background. "What's the occasion?" she asked, dropping her bag and crossing to kiss him hello. "Can't I just cook for the hard-working executive in my life?" He deflected, though something in his manner suggested more significant intentions. Over dinner, Ethan shared updates about his resignation process at Meridian and initial board formation for his new educational nonprofit. Maya listened attentively, offering suggestions about potential philanthropic partners based on her industry connections. "There's something else I wanted to discuss," Ethan said as they finished dessert, his typical confidence giving way to an endearing nervousness. "With both of us making significant career transitions, it seems like the right time to consider other changes as well." Maya's pulse quickened as he reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table between them. "This isn't a traditional proposal," he continued, opening the box to reveal a striking emerald ring with a unique, modern setting. "We've never done anything in the conventional order anyway." Maya laughed softly, emotion welling in her throat. "I'm not asking you to be my wife in the sense of changing who you are or what you do," Ethan clarified, his voice gaining certainty. "I'm asking if you want to build a formal, legally recognized partnership to match the one we've already created, in every way that matters." The thoughtfulness of his framing, acknowledging her independence while proposing deeper commitment, perfectly captured the balance they'd always maintained. "In that case," Maya replied, reaching for the ring with steady hands, "my answer is yes, absolutely yes." Their engagement announcement generated considerably more industry attention than either would have preferred. Maya's position as one of the few female CTOs in major tech companies already placed her under media scrutiny. Her personal milestones became fodder for business publications and technology blogs. "We should elope," she suggested, half seriously, after a particularly intrusive interview request from a prominent technology magazine. "Just disappear and come back married." "Tempting," Ethan agreed, "but I think we'd regret not celebrating with the people who supported us through everything." They compromised with an intimate ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden, attended by close friends, family, and a carefully selected group of colleagues who had become genuine friends. Maya's parents, initially skeptical of her whirlwind romance with a former superior, had been won over by Ethan's evident respect for their daughter's independence and achievements. "He looks at you like you're both a miracle and his equal," her mother observed during the rehearsal dinner. "That's rare, Mija." On their wedding day, as Maya prepared with her closest friends, an unexpected visitor arrived. Eleanor Wright, her former boss and mentor, now retired but still a powerful presence in Maya's life. "I hope I'm not intruding," the older woman said, elegant in a tailored suit despite being well into her 70s. "I brought something for you." She handed Maya a small package containing a vintage silver compass, beautifully preserved and still functional. "My mentor gave this to me when I became CTO," Eleanor explained, "said that leadership is about setting direction, not just following established paths. Seemed fitting to pass it to you today." Maya carefully held the compass, touched by the gesture's symbolism. "Thank you for seeing potential in me when I was still finding my way." "That's the secret," Eleanor replied with a knowing smile. "We're all still finding our way, no matter how far we've come. The best partners help us navigate without controlling the journey." The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. Maya and Ethan exchanging vows they had written themselves under a canopy of flowering trees. Rather than traditional promises, they each spoke of the lessons their unconventional beginning had taught them, about resilience, about seeing beyond surface circumstances, about building partnership from mutual respect rather than dependence. I fell in love with you in phases, Maya told Ethan, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. First with your kindness when I was at my most vulnerable, then with your mind as we worked together. Finally, with your vision for making the world more equitable through technology. Each phase revealed another layer of the man I'm choosing as my partner today. Ethan's vows acknowledged the unusual power dynamics they had navigated throughout their relationship. We've been strangers, colleagues, boss and employee in both directions, he noted with a smile that drew warm laughter from their guests. Through every configuration, we've found ways to support each other's growth rather than limit it. I promise to continue that pattern for all the roles we've yet to discover. Their honeymoon took them far from technology and career pressures, a month-long journey through small villages in southern Italy, where neither was recognized nor expected to make consequential decisions. They walked cobblestone streets hand in hand, talking about dreams beyond their current achievements. What do you want that you don't have yet? Maya asked one evening as they sat on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, local wine and simple food spread before them. Ethan considered the question seriously, as he did all her inquiries. Time, he finally answered. Not more hours in the day, but extended periods focused on single purposes. Modern life fragments attention. Real innovation requires depth. The observation resonated with Maya, who had found her CTO responsibilities increasingly pulling her away from the hands-on technical work she loved. I've been thinking about that too, she admitted, about setting term limits on my leadership role. Ethan looked surprised. You've only been CTO for 2 years. Most people in that position stay for a decade. Most people follow conventional paths, Maya pointed out. We never have. I'm wondering if my greatest contribution might be establishing the ethical framework and then making space for fresh perspective. The conversation sparked a vision of potential futures neither had previously articulated, perhaps alternating periods of intensive leadership with sabbaticals for technical creation, possibly even collaboration on projects, merging their distinct expertise in commercial technology and educational access. Returning to Chicago as newlyweds, Maya and Ethan settled into a rhythm that balanced their demanding careers with intentional time together. With Ethan's non-profit gaining momentum and Maya's role at Meridian continuing to evolve, they established boundaries that preserved their connection amid external pressures. 6 months after their wedding, Maya was invited to deliver the keynote address at Women in Technology International's annual conference. Standing before thousands of attendees, many young women just beginning their technical careers, she found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment of influence. My path to this stage was neither straight nor easy, she began, deliberately avoiding the polished success narrative common to such speeches. 2.5 years ago, I was unemployed, desperate, and convinced my career in technology was over before it had truly begun. A murmur ran through the audience. This was not the expected opening from a chief technology officer of a major company. What I didn't realize then was that rock bottom wasn't my ending, it was my foundation, Maya continued, warming to her theme. From that lowest point, I built something stronger and more authentic than I could have constructed on an easier path. She shared her story openly. The financial struggle, the morning she woke in a stranger's apartment, the awkward job interview with that same stranger, and the subsequent professional evolution that led to her current position. Rather than glossing over the difficulties or coincidences, she emphasized how each challenge had developed capacities she now relied upon daily. The months when I could barely afford groceries taught me to recognize which problems are truly urgent and which are merely uncomfortable, she explained. The humiliation of depending on kindness from a stranger taught me that vulnerability and strength aren't opposites. They're companions on any meaningful journey. As Maya concluded her address, she offered perspective rather than platitudes. Success isn't about avoiding difficulty. It's about transforming difficulty into wisdom. Leadership isn't about having power. It's about creating power in others. And rock bottom, whatever form it takes in your life, isn't a destination. It's simply the place where you discover what you're truly built upon. The standing ovation that followed affirmed that her unconventional message had resonated far more deeply than a traditional success story would have. As young women lined up afterward to speak with her briefly, Maya recognized in many of them the same combination of determination and uncertainty she had felt during her own career struggles. "Your speech changed how I see my current situation," one young developer told her, eyes bright with emotion. "I've been feeling like a failure for being laid off, but maybe it's just the foundation for something better." "It absolutely can be," Maya assured her. "The question isn't whether you fall. We all do. It's what you build once you understand what truly matters." That evening, as Ethan drove them home from the conference center, he glanced at Maya with evident pride. "You know what struck me most about your speech?" he asked. "How completely you've integrated all parts of your experience, the struggles and successes alike, into a coherent vision." Maya considered this thoughtfully. "I think that's what healing really means," she replied. "Not erasing painful chapters, but finding their purpose in your larger story." As they pulled into their parking garage, Ethan reached for her hand. "Speaking of larger stories, I've been thinking about what you said in Italy, about leadership term limits and making space for what comes next." Maya turned toward him, intrigued. "And what if our next chapters were more deliberately intertwined?" he suggested. "My non-profit needs a technical visionary to scale the platform. Meridian has several promising leaders ready for greater responsibility. The possibility hung between them, a professional collaboration that would build upon their personal partnership in new ways. It would mean stepping away from significant corporate power," Maya acknowledged, thinking through implications, "but potentially toward greater impact in educational equity." "Just something to consider," Ethan said, clearly having given the idea substantial thought. "No rush to decide." As they rode the elevator to their apartment, Maya felt a familiar sensation, the vertiginous mix of uncertainty and possibility that had characterized each major transition in her remarkable journey. From unemployed engineer to ethics specialist, from unexpected leader to potential educational innovator, each phase had seemed impossible until it became inevitable. "Life's most important turning points rarely announce themselves," she murmured, echoing words she had spoken on a previous anniversary. "What was that?" Ethan asked as they reached their floor. Maya smiled, a decision crystallizing with unexpected clarity. "I said we should talk more about this non-profit collaboration idea. I think it might be the next foundation we're meant to build together." As they entered their home, the space that had once been his alone, then cautiously shared, now fully theirs, Maya reflected on how thoroughly her life had transformed since that disorienting morning when she'd woken in a stranger's bed. The path from that moment of mortification to her current fulfillment had been neither direct nor easy, yet each difficult step had somehow led precisely where she needed to go. The woman who had once feared dependency had discovered partnership that strengthened rather than diminished her. The professional who had once doubted her value had found ways to transform entire industries. And the stranger whose bed she'd woken in had become the foundation upon which she built not just a relationship, but a vision for technology that served humanity's deepest needs. Rock bottom, it turned out, had been exactly where her true life began. The 5th anniversary of Maya and Ethan's first meeting found them in dramatically different circumstances than either could have predicted. After 3 successful years as Meridian's CTO, Maya had made the bold decision to step down at the peak of her corporate influence, joining Ethan's educational nonprofit as Chief Innovation Officer. The transition raised eyebrows throughout. The technology industry, why would a rising executive star abandon her trajectory for an unproven venture? People keep asking if I'm having a midlife crisis, Maya laughed, addressing the small gathering at their anniversary celebration. The intimate party included Eleanor Wright, Samantha Lee, and a handful of colleagues who had become true friends over the years. They can't understand choosing impact over position. To making choices that confuse the conventional, Ethan toasted, raising his glass with a smile that still made Maya's heart skip after 5 years together. Their professional partnership had proven even more powerful than their personal one. Ethan's vision for educational accessibility, combined with Maya's technical innovation, had transformed their non-profit Learning Foundations from a promising startup into a revolutionary force in educational technology. Their adaptive learning platform now served over 300,000 students across the country, with international expansion planned for the coming year. Tell them about the West Side Project, Eleanor encouraged, her role as board chairwoman of Learning Foundations, keeping her actively engaged despite her official retirement. Maya exchanged a glance with Ethan, their silent communication perfected through years of partnership. "We just received confirmation this morning," she announced. "The pilot program in Chicago's most under-resourced schools showed a 43% improvement in educational outcomes for students with learning differences." Though the announcement drew enthusiastic exclamations from their guests, all familiar with the challenges those particular schools had faced for decades. "That's not just statistically significant," Samantha observed, her analytical mind immediately grasping the implications. "That's transformative. The technology is just an enabler," Ethan emphasized, his passion for educational equity burning as brightly as ever. "The real transformation happens because we're helping teachers recognize and nurture each student's unique learning patterns." As the celebration continued around them, Maya found herself observing Ethan from across the room, struck by how their journey had shaped them both. The successful but somewhat restless executive she'd met 5 years ago had found his true purpose in educational accessibility. His natural leadership now served a mission perfectly aligned with his deepest values. Later that evening, after their guests had departed, Maya and Ethan stood on their balcony overlooking the Chicago skyline, the same view that had once intimidated Maya when she first visited his apartment. 5 years, Maya mused, leaning into his embrace. From waking up mortified in your bed to building a learning platform that's changing thousands of lives. "I still maintain that was the luckiest hangover in history," Ethan quipped, his arms tightening around her. "Though I prefer your current method of ending up in my bed." Maya laughed, turning to face him, looking back. "Could you have imagined this path? All the twists from that first morning to now?" Ethan considered the question thoughtfully. "Not the specifics," he admitted, "but something about you that first morning, even hungover and horrified, suggested extraordinary possibility. There was a resilience that fascinated me." "Desperation looks like resilience from the outside," Maya countered with a self-deprecating smile. "No," Ethan shook his head. "It was more than that. You were at rock bottom, but still fundamentally yourself, brilliant, principled, unwilling to settle." The observation touched Maya deeply, affirming something she had come to believe about her own journey. "Rock bottom strips away everything but essence," she reflected. "All the external markers of success and status disappear, leaving only core character." They stood in companionable silence, watching the city lights below. Finally, Maya spoke the thought that had been forming throughout the evening. I want to establish a scholarship specifically for students who faced significant setbacks. Not just financial support, but mentorship from people who've rebuilt after failure. The Rock Bottom Scholarship, Ethan suggested, referencing the foundation they'd established years earlier. For students who understand that falling apart sometimes precedes rebuilding something stronger. The idea crystallized between them, another example of how their greatest innovations emerged from the intersection of their different perspectives. Maya's technical brilliance combined with Ethan's educational vision had created possibilities neither could have developed alone. 5 years ago, I thought waking up in your apartment was the most humiliating moment of my life, Maya reflected, turning to face the man who had become her partner in every sense. I had no idea it was actually the first step toward everything. Meaningful, career fulfillment, purpose beyond success, partnership that strengthens rather than limits. To unexpected beginnings, Ethan proposed, echoing the toast they had shared on previous anniversaries. And to foundations built from rock bottom, Maya completed, their personal mythology now a source of strength rather than embarrassment. As the Chicago night enveloped them, Maya considered how thoroughly her understanding of success had transformed. The desperate young woman who had once measured her worth through professional achievement and financial stability had evolved into someone who recognized that true success lay in impact, in authentic connection, in building something that outlasted personal ambition. The most profound lesson of her extraordinary journey wasn't that failure could lead to success. It was that what appeared to be rock bottom often served as the perfect foundation for building a life of genuine meaning, provided you remained open to unexpected possibilities and courageous enough to step through doors you never planned to enter. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.